Welcome Drawing 1. We're starting our sighting and proportion project today. This is our pencil shaded project and it's going to be two parts. The first part is going to be a line drawing sketch, trying to copy as accurately as we can these geometric shapes in pretty much the same scale onto this paper. So we're going to try and draw fairly large and fill the entire page up. This is our 18 by 24 inch white Strathmore drawing pad. And we're using our 2B pencils, the green pencils in the kit, your hard white eraser, and perhaps maybe get your clicky out, a clicky eraser. And I've posted the photograph of the still life I'd like you guys to work on Blackboard for you. 1 week to do the line sketch, and then the second week we're going to work on the pencil shading. So the technique we're using to get correct proportion is called sighting. And it's basically using your pencil to compare where certain shapes intersect other certain shapes. We can check sizes. We can figure out, I wonder how large or wide the ball is compared to the column. And when I check them, okay, the column is slightly skinnier, not as wide as the ball. Or I could check the heights of the boxes. The other thing the other trick to do is check your angles of the boxes. You can actually line your pencil up and then come and check what you've drawn. So step one, if you notice, I have a little mark in halfway up the page on this side, halfway here, so I've almost created a big X. And I'm going to do the same thing on my paper, halfway, halfway, and you can roughly estimate this or you can measure. Halfway, halfway. And that gives me some guidelines on just getting started. And I would probably put my horizon line in here, and I'm going to start, you can start wherever you want. I'm going to start with the ball. So looks like I'm noticing if this is my halfway mark, the tabletop is maybe a third of the way down. So I'm going to put my table edge there. Now I'm going to figure out where to start and end the ball. How high is the ball and how low is the ball? Notice that this format is a little bit skinnier, this page, than your pad. Your pad is maybe a little bit wider. So it doesn't matter. What I'm more concerned about is if you can get the shapes the correct size relative to each other. Not so much does it match perfectly on the page how it matches perfectly on this page. So I'm noticing that the top of the ball is almost at the halfway point. So if this is my halfway point, a little bit lower, put the ball about here, and then I notice it comes down about here. How to draw a circle without a compass. You keep a loose, I'm holding the pencil farther back, not like this where I'm writing with. I'm keeping my hand kind of relaxed, and a very light feathery line. Do the best I can, and then I'm looking for where I feel like it's either smushed in and needs to be fluffed out, or it just doesn't feel balanced. So I feel like this is curvier, this side feels a little flatter. I might fluff that out. And then I can always erase and clean up my multiple lines. Hard eraser is good for erasing and getting rid of errors, lines you don't like, cleaning up a little bit. Notice that this line I'm using is a sketch line. It's not the hard, heavy contour line. We're not going to be using the contour line for this project because I want to be able to erase. If I press too hard with my pencil, it's going to be harder for me to get a nice clean line and be able to erase it later. Okay, so I've got my ball pretty good. Now I'm going to start my box, and I'm trying to figure out where do I start the edge of the box. So I'm going to notice, oh, okay, this is the top of the ball, maybe over about 10 o'clock. So maybe that's where the box starts. And then the bottom of the box, okay, it comes up maybe an inch from the bottom of the ball, so maybe here. Now, what's the angle? Is that the correct angle for the box? I can actually line my pencil up along the edge of the box on the photograph, pull it down, and check. Yep, not too angly, it's not too flat. It looks like a good angle to me. Where do I put the top of the box? It's just a bit above the top of the ball. And for the most part, I want to make sure that my angles match. I notice in this photograph there's a little bit of foreshortening, which means the top of this box is a little bit different angle than the top. They kind of V out like a railroad track. So there's a little bit of what we call foreshortening in this photograph. But for the most part, this top of the box and the bottom of the box should match pretty close. So it looks like I've got a little more angle here. So it looks like I've got to alter, see how I'm lining up my pencils to make sure that they're pretty parallel. So it looks like I've changed it a little bit. I might come a little steeper. Okay, now where does the box end? If this is the middle of my page, just a little bit to the left of middle. So here's my middle, so I might end the box about here. Okay. Now I'm ready to work on the right side of the box. I notice that if I check my angle, it's going uphill pretty steeply. So I'm going to give it a go. And then I'm going to double check. And I notice that this bottom of the box is a little bit steeper angle. Up top, it levels out a little bit. So I'm going to change that a little bit less steep. Now, where do I end the box? Well, if this is halfway point, it's not quite a quarter of the page here. So it's about, double check again. It's halfway, maybe about here. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to this cone here. Where does the cone hit? And this shape is behind. You only see a fragment of it. How far down the box does it hit? Maybe about there. And then where does it end? It's a little dark. It's hard to see, but it looks to me like it ends about here. Okay, ready to start my column here. So I want to know where the bottom of this lies, and I notice that it's in the same position as the bottom of the ball. So I can just draw a line across the page, and I know that, okay, that's where he sits. How much distance is there? Not much, maybe an inch and a half, inch and a half. So he's fairly close to that box. Now, how far up does he come? If I intersect this ball, where does the top of the ball hit the column? Right about halfway point. So if this ball is intersecting him about half, and I measure this, it's a little bit less than a pencil. Okay, so the column is about 2 balls. The height of him is about 2 of the ball. Okay. I'm going to remember, because I know this is a curvy, rounded shape, I'm going to remember to curve the bottom of the cone a little bit. Now, the top, I notice, it doesn't conform, the curvature doesn't go this way. I notice it has a slight curvature up to the sky. Not much, but just slightly. So it looks like maybe, again, the camera kind of distorted it a little bit. Now, how wide is the column? I'm not sure. It looks awfully close to the same as the ball, but let me double check. Put the left side of my pencil on the ball, move my finger, mark it. Okay, the column's a little bit less. Not quite, so I'm come over here to my ball. What's a little bit less? About right there. And I could actually put a little mark there. All right. Now, how do I get the tabletop? It's way over here. It's behind this. How do I get this level to match up? I will actually draw through shapes and then later erase that line out because I want to keep the line the same. Okay, so now that I know that that tabletop matches that. And then later I could just erase out. And then the last shape, well, let's double check the cone that's behind this big column. Oh, that was like a double line there. I want to clean that up. There we go. Okay, how far, where does, I notice that I've got the top of this cone here too low, because when I'm noticing up here, it's only about maybe an inch and a half. So I've got to bring that level up. Because it's all about the relationships of the shapes and how they interact with each other. Okay, ready to do my small box here. Where do I put the corner and where do I start this? I noticed that maybe if this is the middle of the ball, a little to the left, middle, so maybe about there. Now I wonder how tall that box is. Is it the same height as this? I'll go ahead and check it out. Yep. So I can come back here, I can measure this guy and put a little dot. Yep. And then where does the corner of the box hit? A little bit to the right of center, so maybe about there. And then I notice that the corner comes over the box. This corner here protrudes out over this the box behind it. Okay, now here's where I'm going to want my angles. I'm going to double check. Yep, that looks pretty good. We said this is the height. And here's where you get a little bit of, again, that foreshortening. This angle is going uphill from the left to the right of the page, but here it's going slightly downhill. Now, where do we end the box? Here's this corner of the lower box. It's just slightly to the left of that corner. So maybe about there. Okay, something feels off. So I'm wondering if it has to do, this doesn't feel long enough. So let me double check my height. Yep. So what I did inadvertently is I made this too high, which is why this is looking too short. So I went back and double checked, do I need to move this line or this line to make him feel longer? No, it has to do with the height. So again, they're the same, so I'm going to shave off. And this is demonstrating, again, why you want to keep your lines light so they can easily erase them. By the time you get done with the shading, you're not going to see a lot of this under sketch line work, but you don't want to be pressing too hard. And I want to double check this distance here. Doesn't seem right to me. So I notice that there's more space, so I'm going to move my ball over. And this is a little bit humorous because on my sketch that I started earlier, working out the whole thing, I had to move the ball over a little bit too. So by moving the ball over, I'm going to have more space between the edge of between the corner of the box and the ball. And this angle needs to come up just a little bit. Now, there's something really interesting on this bottom box. So I was studying it this morning. To my eyes, you see just a smidgen of the top of the box over here. And you don't see it over here. So you see a very small, thin slice. If you don't perceive that top of the box when you look at it, I don't have a problem if it gets left out. But when I studied it, I saw a little bit of that. If you want to go ahead and take the time to map out some of your shadows, but again, no heavy outlines because these are soft shapes, the shadows. We call these cast shadows. We'll get more into this when we start shading next week. You could lightly, very lightly sketch those out. But again, keep it super light. And that's it. And it's due July 14th when we'll start the shading project. So your finished project, again, should look like this. You know, fairly large on the page. Keep the line fairly light. I would say that this will be a good hour or two project just to get the shapes where you want them and have them be correct size relative to each other. And that's it. And email me or text me if you have any issues, and send me a photograph and I can help you. And it always helps to have a second eye. If you feel like something's not working, I'll take a look at it and help you figure it out. All right, thank you. Have fun.